So Parabolas Part B. Go ahead and copy down this slide, please, picture and all. Alright, so we're going to talk about today specifically how the equation relates to the graph today. Last class we just kind of like looked at what was the relationship between the focus, the vertex, and the directrix. Today, though, we're going to use that information to take it another step. We're going to actually do graphs and looking at the equations. So we're going to be focused on getting equations and getting graphs. So from here, we've seen this before way back in semester 1. The H and the K represent our vertex. Okay? The A tells us a few things. First of all, the A tells us what direction it's going, whether it's going up or down. If it's going up, then A is positive. If it's going down, then A is negative. All right? Now, this thing down here, this little formula, when we're looking at the problems we did last time, we had the focus, the directrix, and the vertex, right? Well, that's what we're going to be starting with today to get these equations, and none of those are going to say specifically what the A value is. However, one of those values, well, two of those values, when you put them together, can help you find the A, and here it is. C is the distance. I think I changed slides here. Let me go back to this slide again. C is the distance from your vertex to the focus. That is what we call C. That's the letter we give it. And I want you to notice that C is it has direction to it also. And what do I mean by that? If the distance from your vertex to your focus is going upwards, then that would be positive. Okay? C would be a positive in that case. Now, if we had a sad face parabola, then I'd have to go from my vertex to my focus by going which way? Downwards. In that case, my C would be a negative number. Okay? And that's going to help you determine whether A is positive or negative. So that is the parabola and its equation. Now somehow I switched slides there and I got to the other one. I want you guys to take careful note though of this. Notice that there's a y part and an x part. There's the y minus k part. There's the x minus h part. Here's a little note you might want to write to yourselves. When the x minus h is being squared, then your parabola is either going up or down. You'll either have that situation or you're going to have that situation there. Okay? Alright, well, now we're going to talk about the horizontal parabolas. The equation look almost the same, but there is a difference. Notice the x minus h part and the y minus k. On this one, the y minus k part is being squared. So, here's our note. When y minus k is squared, then we have one of the situations of either being to the left, like so, or to the right. So to continue here, now the C is still the distance between your vertex and your focus, and the direction thing still applies, but the directions are different. If you're going to the right, like this one, then C is positive. If you have a parabola that's going this way, then to go from your vertex to your focus, you'd have to go to the left, which would make the C a negative number. Okay? And that's how we'll be finding A. So basically, when we're trying to find the equation, you have to find A. So you're going to figure out what C is using this process, plug it into this formula so you can get your A for the equation. That's pretty much where we're going with this. We're going to do a few sample problems to illustrate that. You go ahead and write down your directions in number 1, please. So to solve these problems, guys, we're going to follow this 5-step process. We're first of all going to graph all the given stuff and kind of get a rough sketch of what the parabola should look like. From that, we got to pick out which equation to use. Then we just have to plug in our vertex and our A, and we'll have it. Okay, so let's get started. Step 1, I'm just going to go ahead and graph this. So our focus is 1, 0. My directrix is y equals -3. One, 0, that's over 1, up, none. There's my focus. My y is -3. Oh, I'm going the wrong way though, aren't I? It's y equals -3. So I need to find -3 on the y-axis. Then we draw a line through it. So there's my directrix. And my vertex should be dead smack in the middle of those. That's what we learned last time. Now, since they're 3 spaces apart, half of 3 is 1.5, right? So I'm going to go down 1.5. So over 1, down 1.5 gives me my vertex. So my vertex would be over 1, down -1.5. So there's nothing new there. That's just what we did last class and what we just practiced again this morning before the lesson started. And that's step 1. Now a good idea to do would be, you don't have to do this, but you can sketch the graph. What will my parabola look like? Will it be going up, down, left, or right from the V? It'd be going upwards because the parabola always has to go around the focus. So that's what it would look like. Now the purpose in doing that is for step 2. Step 2, we have to decide which equation to use. And I'm going to write them both up here. We can use this equation or we can use this one. One of them is correct and one of them is incorrect. When the parabola is like that, which equation do I use? Do I use equation A or equation B? It's A, right? When the x, and you guys wrote down this one, I'll know earlier, when x minus h is being squared, it's a vertical parabola. So we're going to use this guy and not that guy. All right, now we're ready for step 3. Can you guys remind me what step 3 says?
Find the vertex.
Find the vertex. Now, I think we already did that. It's up here in step 1. We got 1, -1.5, so that's good. And that's our h and that's our k. So let's go ahead and move on to step 4. Alright guys, step 4 is a pretty new thing to us, so let's go ahead and look at step 4. Step 4, we have to find out what A is. So, to find out what A is, we're going to use this formula 1 over 4 times C. Now C is the distance from your vertex to the focus, and you have to include the direction, which means it's going to be positive or negative when we plug it in. So let's go ahead and go back here and take a look at our graph. Starting from the vertex, which way do I have to go to get to my focus? Up. So I know that C is going to be positive when I plug it in because upwards is a positive value. But just how far up do I go? 1.5. So C equals positive 1.5, right? So I'm going to go ahead and plug that in right there. And we get 1 over 4 times 1.5 positive, which is 2? I don't think so. I think it's 6. I believe it's 6. Now if you guys have trouble multiplying decimals, you can always use your calculators if you want. Or you can just know that 4 times 15 is 60 and move the decimal over once to get 6. Alright, so that's what A equals. A equals 1/6. Now we're ready for that last step. In the last step, we're going to take the equation that we picked and we're just going to plug in our h, our k, and the a. So, going back to step 2, we've seen that we picked the y minus k equals a times x minus h squared formula. So I'm going to do that, but this time I'm going to leave out the k, the a, and the h because we're going to be plugging something in those spots. So, h and k is your vertex. K is the y value of your vertex. What was the y value of my vertex? It was -1.5. If you don't remember that, look at step 3. And what was the x value of my vertex? That's my h, is 1. And what was a? That was step 4. We got 1/6. Now after you got everything plugged in, you just clean it up a little bit. Double negatives there can become positive 1.5. A is 1/6. X minus 1 squared. Other ways you might have to clean it up is by, like if you had x minus 0, you just get rid of the 0 and put x, right? I'd say that's probably the only two things you'd have to do. Now just so you guys know, in your textbook and on tests and stuff, they may not write the equation like this. A lot of times they'll put this piece on the other side. It really means the same thing though, so don't be too confused if they decide to write it like this. Yeah. Notice whenever I defined it for you guys, I said go by what's being squared, right? Notice I said when y minus k is squared, make it go left or right. Because what I notice a lot of students have a tendency to do is they think, okay, when x minus h comes first, then you go left and right. That's not true. This piece could be moved to the other side and it's still the same thing. What you look at is what part's being squared. Okay? So don't go by which one's coming first because it won't always be in the same order. All right, well,